Hi, Dunlop Clarinets. Okay, this week I'd like you to go to page 10. And so we've been doing quarter notes and eighth notes, which share a beat, and half notes. And we've been using pretty much most of our left hand, which is our upper joint, remember? And we've been using the top teardrop, which we lean back into, A, and then open G, thumb F, add the first finger for E, add the second finger for D, and add the third finger for C. And that's the middle C, the one that's underneath the staff, remember, and is kind of cut in half. The round part of the note is cut in half with a ledger line. And then we also had one more which went just below that. So it actually sat below the ledger line. So the ledger line sat on top of the round part of the note. And that was the B, which we would play with our middle finger. So how about we start at the top, at A, our top teardrop key, and let's play the notes together one at a time. Okay, so this is second space, A, top teardrop. Okay, were you able to play that with me? And then if we release it, we have really no fingers down for G. And then remember, our thumb is coming in at a diagonal. That's a good positioning for it, not this way, but at a diagonal. And that's thumb F, and that's the bottom space. And then we add our first finger E, which is the bottom line of the staff. And remember, I've always been saying D is down under the staff. It floats just beneath that bottom line. And now to extend the staff, we're going to use those ledger lines that cut the note right in half. That's our C. And then finally, the middle finger is going to be added to the middle key. It never operates these other keys, only the middle key. That's its home base. And that is the one where the head of the note floats just below the ledger line, B. So one good way to remember these is D is down under the staff, C is cut in half with a ledger line, and B is below the ledger line. So if you say those little rhymes to yourself, I think it'll help you keep those straight. And then of course it's always a little easier once we get into the staff, because we can use our every good boy deserves fudge rhyme or our F-A-C-E for the spaces, okay? All right, so you on page 10? Let's take a look at number 45. And I talked to you about this last week. When you play this slowly, you may not recognize it kind of as the Lone Ranger theme, but certainly when it's played very, very fast, most everybody can recognize this theme. So even if you've never seen the Lone Ranger, any of the movies or anything that's ever been done with that name brand on it, certainly some cartoons and even commercials have used this kind of as a hurry up song. So we're looking at Essential Elements Quiz number 45, William Tell. So the first two notes, CC, are on 4 and. Remember last week I told you, if there's not a full measure there, if there's not the full counts, we call them pickup notes. So as a conductor, if we were all together right now, to get you all started as a group, I might say 1, 2, 3, and on 3, we would breathe together. And then as musicians, we'd play 4 and 1, and then we're off to the races together. Okay, so that's how we're gonna start it today. You ready? Remember, it's teeth on top, no skin under. 1, 2, 3, breathe. Rest. Sorry, I took my eyes off my music, and even I make mistakes sometimes. So that third to last note, I kind of boggled that a little bit. You could hear me as I started to play an E and I needed to play an F. Okay, so did you notice when you got to the half note, the second measure from the end, it felt like forever, didn't it? And that's because you're playing faster rhythms now. So when you're playing, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1, 2, feels so long. So you always have to be careful when you're coming out of faster paced rhythms, not tempos, but the rhythms are printed quicker. When we have longer rhythms, then we want to cheat them. We want to play them a little too fast, and that'll be forever. As long as you're a musician, you're going to find that your tendency is to want to try to go too fast, which a lot of times as musicians we call rushing, taking things too fast. Okay, so you ready for page 11 now? So we're going to skip 46, the rhythm rap, because I have a feeling that you got this pretty good. So let's take a look at 47, 2 by 2. And we're just going to use, excuse me, some different combinations of eighth notes. And again, I have a feeling you're going to grab onto this pretty well. So let's just jump in and get it done. So 47, 2 by 2, first note we start on is C. Here we go. You ready? And now this is a full measure, isn't it? Because there's only 2 beats per measure. So instead of counting 1, 2, 3, 4 in a measure, we're just simply counting 1, 2. And honestly, we don't really care that much because the bottom number is really important. The 4 underneath tells us that we're counting a quarter note as 1 beat. So as musicians, we give a quarter note a beat, an eighth note a half a beat, a half note we get 2 beats. Like everything we do is the same. It's just the grouping of the beats is smaller, where we put the bar lines. Honestly, could we take 2 by 2 and change it and put it into 4/4 time? We could. Okay, so here we go. You ready? 1, 2, ready, play. Repeat. Okay, how'd that one go? That's actually really kind of fun to play. And I hope that you kind of enjoyed that middle part also. And some of the fun in that is the way that they put a rest on 1, and then in the next measure they put another rest on the second beat of the measure. And it kind of made it feel a bit playful, didn't it? To have those little breaks at kind of maybe in spots that you might not think they might normally come. This is the magic of music. We can take a lot of basic information and scramble it up and make it brand new. Think of it as a recipe. You got a whole bunch of different ingredients. If you put a lot of something in a little bit, or you leave something else out, totally different taste. Music is that way. So you're doing the building blocks right now. And even though some things may be trickier, you just got to hang in there, because as you get these skills and as you keep going, you're going to find you can do more and more and more. It's like a plane taking off, and it is a lot of fun. Okay, so I hope that you might be ready for one more for this week. So let's take a look at 48, High School Cadets March. Now I want to bring your attention to the guy whose name is at the end of the line, John Philip Sousa. He was known as just the king of a march, king of especially American patriotic march, American music. And I just want to tell you, I'm going to come back in a second and I'm just going to tell you a little bit of story about John Philip Sousa, because I think you might get a kick out of it. Okay, be back in a minute. Hi, Dunlap Clarinets. Okay, so as promised, I've got an awesome story for you about John Philip Sousa. Sometimes people think that these very old conductors that have been dead for a long time are boring, and actually they just need to do a little digging about some of these people. So John Philip Sousa was a very, very talented young musician. He started playing music around your age, and he just kind of took to a lot of different instruments and was really, really interested. And his father was involved in military bands, and so he got more and more and more interested, and he got a job as kind of being like an apprentice musician, like learning from other, older adult musicians. When he was like 11 and 12 years old, he was learning from some of these people that played in the band in Washington, D.C. And so, but John wanted to write music. He was really interested in it, and he liked a lot of different styles of music. But one kind of music that he loved the most was circus music. And so, like, one of his favorite pieces, or one of his most favorite pieces that he wrote, Stars and Stripes, it goes da 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 da, and it kind of, you probably have heard that around the 4th of July, car commercials, parades. And so this was his style of music that he really liked, and he heard this style of music and was influenced by what musicians in the carnivals were doing, and especially like the traveling type carnivals, like the circus. And so his mother was very distraught because John wanted to go and play and travel with the circus. And as you can imagine, his mother freaked out. If you've ever seen carny workers at the fair, some of these people, they were adults, and they were kind of rough on the edges. And his mother was so upset. She went to his father and she said, "You do something with your kid." And John was threatening to run away from home and join the circus, and he was kind of serious about that. So to be able to keep an eye on him, they enlisted him in the military. Now, this was the 1800s still. They let him enlist in the military, in the Marines, at 13 years old. Oh my goodness, that's like 7th grade, right? But his mother felt that if he was in Washington, D.C. and he was working with these musicians, then they could keep an eye on him. So that's just a little fun fact about John Sousa. He might have been a little bit of a brat, but he turned out to be an amazing American composer. So we're going to play one of his marches, the High School Cadets, and it's number 48. So if you take a look at it, notice first 2 notes, they're pickup notes. It's not a full measure, right? This also is in 2/4 time, because think about it. Marching kind of music, that makes sense, doesn't it? Because if we were marching, we might march with our left and right and left and right and 1 and 2 and 1 and 2. So this driving kind of 2/4 time, where we have a heavy beat every other beat, was perfect for marching and parades. So high school cadets, we're going to play it slow. So I'm going to count out 1, 2, 1. We breathe. And then together we're going to play 2 and 1. Okay? And then we'll all be together. All right, you ready? Here we go. 1, 2, breathe, 1. And just like last week, if you look in the last measure, you go, well, that's not a full measure. There's something missing there. If there had been a repeat sign, we could have simply repeated to the very beginning again and picked up on beat 2 and then it would have completed a full measure. So the tricky one in this one this week, and don't get discouraged if it gives you a little bit of trouble, is the skipping around of the notes, right? They're not always moving like a scale, but they're skipping around. And it may take you a few tries to get this. And obviously, high school cadets, like the William Tell, is normally played, much faster. So it gives it a little bit different sound. And then you go, wow, that's really interesting at that speed. And I want to caution you, don't ever take your music too fast in the beginning, because what you do is when you play a lot of errors, it's like you're learning the errors, then you have to unlearn them and then relearn it the correct way, and it actually takes you longer. So start slow on everything you do, and then you can slowly try to speed it up, keeping everything in its proper place in terms of how much value does it get, and each note gets exactly what it's supposed to get, and each note is with the correct fingering and the correct pitch. So always start slow. It's the best way to do it. Okay, so I hope you guys have a great week. Next week we're going to start a new note, and just for fun, you might want to slide down to it. So we know we were just playing A, G, F, E, D, C, and B was in the middle, right? And if I close that first one, it'll give me an even lower note. So I'm going to go A, and this low one is going to be low A. That's the bottom one right there. So you can see, wow, you're almost closing up the entire tube now. So you're getting close. Good job. I hope you have an awesome week. Keep practicing, keep at it. Don't get discouraged, because there's always going to be bumps in the road, but I promise you it's going to be worth it. And I will see you back next week. Bye-bye.